Emily, it's Make It Month 11, and yesterday I showed you how you could make a simple hollow form pendant. It's because this month is all about hollow forms, which is just a fancy word for something that's hollow, if you can hear the noise. Very hollow. So the nice thing about hollow forms is you can make things that are quite big and quite chunky, but they're really, really light because it's completely hollow. It's not solid, it just looks like a solid shape. So today I want to talk to you about a different way of incorporating hollow forms into your work. So with this one, it was all constructed from flat sheet, so 0.5mm brass. But today is a little bit different. It's using something called pressings. So up until this point, some of you will have seen me taking metal and hammering it into a recess, a die, to get texture. So some of you saw me using the little shot plate, which is this bad boy. So you can see it's got lots of little recesses, and they all have little textures in there. And what you do, normally you would take some scrap metal, so normally you would melt a little bit of scrap into a ball, place the ball on the relevant texture that you want, put a little bit of tape over it to stop it flying across the room, and then whack it with a hammer, and it would take on the texture of the shot plate. And most of you have seen me and my students using the little wire dinky dies. So again, you take your metal, your wire normally, and then hammer it into the textured recess, and it will take on the texture. So you're pushing metal into a textured recess to make the metal textured. With pressings, it's a very similar thing. So you're taking similar dies and you're still pushing the metal into it, but you normally use sheet metal, and because you're pushing it into it, you end up with a textured piece of sheet, but it's a hollow form because it bulges out, because it's a thin metal that you're pushing into the recess rather than a solid ball or a solid piece of wire. So I don't have any of those dies really, because it's not something I use, but I'm going to show you some of the tools for them anyway. The closest that I have is the wonky donkey I was using the other day. So this little donkey that Elsa at EL Silver sent me, and a little bit of bronze clay that I pushed into it. So when I did this the other day, as you can see, it's a solid form because it was clay, and I packed it into there and then fired it, whereas you could potentially use this to make a hollow form by using sheet metal. When it's chunky metal or when it's clay, so when you're making a solid form, it's easy to use the dies because you just put the medium you're working with, so whether it's the the wires or the clay, lay it in place, and then the thickness of that metal that's sticking out, that's what you're pushing into the recess. So whether it's you're hammering it into it or whether it's clay, and you just sort of squish it in with your fingers. Either way, you've got excess material, thick material that you're pushing down into that to end up with a solid form. With hollow forms, what you would do is you would take thin sheet metal, cut it a little bit bigger than the die that you're using, so the area that you want to push it down into. But if you just hammered this, it's not going to really drop down into it, so you need to use something else to push that metal into the die. And what a lot of people use is lead. So if I wanted to do this just with the tools that I have here, what I would do is take my die, take some thin metal. You would have to make sure it was completely annealed, as soft as possible, and then I would take something squishy, so in this case lead, put that on top, and then I would hammer the lead so that the lead is pushing the metal into the die. But this die isn't particularly deep, so it's not very likely to work. The other thing you can do is you can use a press. So that's normally the key to these techniques, is you would have a die that's a little bit deeper than this one, and then you would set it up in the same way. So you've got your sheet on top, something squidgy, so whether it's lead or whether it's something plastics based or leather, and you've got that there to push the metal down, and then you're going to impart some force. So if it was a press, you can either get a Arbor Press or you can get a hydraulic press, and I'm going to show you an Arbor Press in a minute. Okay everybody, this is my Arbor Press. It's not bolted down, so like I say, I'm not going to actually do this, I'm just going through the motions. But what it is a steel plate. You can put the thing that you want to impart force onto on the steel plate, and then you lower the handle to pin it in place, like so. Put a bit of pressure on that, and then when you've got some pressure on that, what you do is you wallop this top bit really hard. So you go bang, 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 bang. And what that's doing is it's imparting extra force because you're sort of hitting it through here, down to here, but it's also pinning it in place. So it's not going to be jumping around in the same way as if I was just trying to hammer it. Like that. So you can get these, but like I say, still not always the best results. What does tend to get the best results when you're trying to press into dies, press sheet metal into dies, is a hydraulic press. Now obviously not everybody has a hydraulic press. They have come down an awful lot in price the last few years. So they're much more accessible than they used to be, but they still take an awful lot of room. They take up a lot of room. So it's not something that I have. It's definitely not something that I'm considering buying, but a hydraulic press gives you way more power in terms of when it's imparting pressure to push the metal down into the mould, and it gives you way more control as well. So like I say, that's the thing that gets the really, really good results. You still need to use a bit of lead or plastic or similar as a method for pushing the sheet metal into the die. And a little side note as well, if you've been handling lead, remember to wash your hands before licking anything because it's toxic, and don't get it on your tools because if it gets in your files and stuff like that and it gets in your silver, it can cause holes. Now, as some of you know, a few of us went down to Lyme Regis a few weeks ago to see Elsa's studio. She invited us down to her play day, which is brilliant. It was really good fun, very generous of her, and that's when I started playing with the dinky dies. But you can get lots and lots and lots of these dies that you can either use, like say with the clay or pushing metal into, and quite a few people who try them, especially if you don't have the hydraulic press, you don't get as good results. So most people tend to stick to the clays with those ones, or the ones like the dinky dies where you can hammer your wire in. But Charlie, or Charlotte Rosser, as some of you may know on Facebook, because she's in quite a few of the silversmithing groups, she just has the knack. She has the talent for getting really, really, really good pressings using hydraulic presses. Because of that, a few of us were getting her to press things for us when we were down there, because she was doing a better job than we were. And we kept saying to her that she really should start just pressing things and selling the pressings online, because it's not something that you readily get in this country. So she started doing it, and she sent me a couple to show you. So I'm going to show you closer for these in a minute. But here we have a little textured shape, but if you spin it round, it's completely hollow. It's a hollow form. So again, the plus of something like this is it's giving you that 3D effect. It's making things look bigger, but it's hollow, so it's lovely and light, and it's cheaper than if it was a solid shape. And also for those of you who have to do hole marking and stuff like that, if something's hollow, you can make bigger things that are still under the hole marking weight. It's one of the little shapes. That's the one I just showed you. And then if I turn this over, if I can get it, completely hollow. A few more little shapes. Nice, three-dimensional looking. Got a bit of height to them, but again, if I turn this over, completely hollow. So all of these you can solder in the normal way. This is the company that Charlie's selling them under, but I'm going to show you how you can attach them to things, solder them on to make your jewellery pop with a little bit more dimension. So I found this in my scrap pot. It's just a little cutout that had a texture on it. The texture, can't pick anything up today. The texture didn't come out particularly deep. I wasn't very happy with it at the time, so it's just been in the scrap pot. But what I thought might look nice is soldering some of these on and turning it into a little pendant. And then I'll save these for another day. I might make a little pair of earrings or something out of these. They're very cute. So yeah, I'm going to go set this up and show you how you can solder them. Normally, you know, I use Pallion solder, so strips of solder cut into little chunks. But you can also get solder paste. So this is solder and flux pre-mixed together, so you don't need to use any flux or borax, you don't need to cut bits of solder. Now, any of my students, anyone who's met me will know I don't particularly like this stuff. It is expensive and it's more toxic, so I much prefer using traditional solder, and also quite often it sticks to itself and not the thing you're trying to put it onto. But there's some things in life where this stuff just makes things easier, and I know a lot of other people absolutely swear by it. So I'm just going to put some on. I'm also going to make sure that I wash my hands as soon as I've done with this. I'm just trying to get it on the edge, but as you can see, I'm sort of smearing it everywhere. Right, I'm going to pop that where I want it, get rid of any excess. Same on this one, pop it where I want it. Just going to line it up. Now, if you were using a lot of solder paste, I would also highly recommend you work under extraction. So, because I don't normally use it, I haven't got any extraction here, we just open the shed door, but at my other studios where I teach, we've got little charcoal extractor units, because we haven't got room for the sort of big industrial ones, but the little charcoal ones are quite good, and you put them close to what you're working and it just sucks all the fumes out of it. But other than that, that's set up and ready to go. Pick it up and you can have a little look. That is one of the bonuses of the solder paste. You're less likely to knock everything out of position, because once things are on there, they do tend to stick. So, torch on, and same as all other soldering, I need to get my bigger element up to temperature before pointing at any small elements, because both things I'm trying to solder need to be the same soldering temperature. There you can see a bit of the smoke from the solder paste, and sometimes it burns off like that, so that little flame. So although these shapes look quite chunky because they're hollow, they're easy to melt, which is why I'm making sure I get my base up to temperature, so I'm skirting the torch around the little press shapes, and then when the background starts to get up to temperature, then I also heat my shape, and I want to get them both up to a nice red colour but not angry orange where it's going to melt. And that's my solder starting to run. Make sure it runs all the way around my edges, and it has. So now I'm ready to do my little shape at the bottom. So heat the little one, and again I'm trying to make sure that the little jump loop that I'm attaching it to and the little flower shape are the same soldering temperature, so that the solder will run and do its job. And there we go, all done. So I'm just going to let this cool for a little second, then I'm going to pick it up, put it in the water, and then clean it in the pickle, and then I'll show you how it comes out. There we go. Still needs longer in the pickle and more of a clean up, but what I've got is 3 little jump loops. So I'm going to attach those to here and solder those together, so it's going to get dirty again. I'm going to pop it in the pickle properly at the end. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll show you how it turns out once it's all nice and clean. There you go. So it's got 3-dimensional form, but it's completely light, hollow, super shiny pendant. So let me know what you think. I'll pop some more details about these in the comments, but for just now, like I say, it's just a really easy way, really quick and easy way of giving a bit of 3D form to your pieces, whether your piece is flat and you add 3D, or whether it's 3D already and you want to make it pop even more. Next up, I'm going to show you how to make a slightly more complicated version of the hollow form bead that we started with. So again, we're going to go back to using flat sheet and forming it into a 3D shape, but this time either we'll make a ring or I'll make sort of a shadow box, or I might combine the two. We'll see how we get on. So if you've got any preference, let me know what you would rather see, and then I'll get that done as soon as possible. But for just now, I'm off to work to set up an exhibition of my students' work. I'm really excited about that, and I'll be sharing the pictures on my social media. But bye for now. I'm going to go and brave the rain again.